Hello, assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammed Basil, uh, BBA semester 3, roll number 001. This is a recorded presentation of sociology. The topic which I choose for my presentation is review of the movement Arab Spring. So the content of my presentation, first I discuss what is Arab Spring, definition, then overview of movement, causes of Arab Spring and major events. Let's start with what is Arab Spring. Arab Spring refers a series of upsprings in the country of the Arab region in 2011, leading of the outstanding of several dictators. Protests broke out in Tanzania in late 2010 and spread to other countries including Tanzania, Egypt, Yemen, Libya, Bahrain, and Syria. Then overview of this spring. Arab Spring. The Arab Spring is a revolutionary wave of demonstration and protest, both non-violent and violent, riots and civil wars in the Arab world that began on 18 December 2010 and spread throughout the countries of the Arab League and surroundings. While the wave of initial revolution and protest has expired by mid 2012, some refer to the ongoing large-scale conflict in Middle East and North Africa as a continuation of the Arab Spring, while others refer to aftermath of a revolution and civil war post mid 2012 as the Arab Winters. The protest has shared some techniques of civil resistance, sustained campaigning evolving strikes, demonstration, marches, and rallies, as well as the effective use of social media to organize, communicate, and raise awareness in the face of state attempts to representation and internet censorship. A major slogan of the demonstration in the Arab world has been the people who want to bring down regime. Now I will discuss the causes of the Arab Spring. The first cause was Arab youth. The first cause of Arab Spring was Arab youth demographic time bomb. As we all know, the Arab regime has been sitting on a demographic time bomb for decades. According to the UN Development Programme, the population in Arab countries more than doubled between 1975 and 2005 to 314 million. In Egypt, two-thirds of the population is under 30. Political and economic development is in most Arab states simply could not keep up with the staggering increase in population, as the ruling elites' incompetence helped lay the seed for their own demise. Next, the cause of Arab Spring was unemployment. The Arab world has a long history of struggle for political change for the leftist group of Islamist radical, but the protest that started in 2011 could not have evolved into a mass phenomena had it not been for the widespread disconnect over unemployment, low living standard, the anger of the university students forced to drive taxi to survive, for the families struggling to provide their children, transcendent ideological division. The next cause of the Arab Spring was aging dictatorship. The economic situation could not stabilize over the time under the competence of the credible government, but by the end of the 20th century, the Arab dictatorship was utterly bankrupt, both ideologically and morally. When the Arab Spring had happened in 2011, Egypt's leader Hosni Mubarak had been in power since 1980. Tanzania's Ben Ali since 1987. while Muammar al-Gaddafi ruled over Libya for 42 years. Most of the population was deeply cynical about the legitimacy of these aging regimes all through until 2011. Most remain passive out of fear of the security services and due to apparent lack of better alternatives of fear of an Islamist takeover. Next cause of Arab Spring was corruption. Economic hardship can be tolerated if the people believe there is a better future ahead, or feel that the pain is at least somewhat equally distributed. Neither was the case in the Arab world, where the state led development gave place to conic capitalism that benefits only a small minority. In Egypt, new some businesses elite collaborated with the regime to amass fortune unimaginable to the majority of population surviving on $2 a day. In Tanzania, no investment deal was closed without a kickback of the ruling family. Next, the cause of Arab Spring was national appeal of the Arab Spring. So, the key of mass appeal of the Arab Spring was its universal message. It called on the Arabs to take back their countries away from the corrupt elites, a perfect mixture of patriotism and social message instead of the ideological slogan. The protesters wielded national flags around the iconic railing call that become this symbol of the uprising across the region. The people went to the fall of the regime. The people want the fall of the regime. The Arab Spring united for a brief time. Next, the cause of the Arab Spring was leaderless revolt. All thought back in some countries by youth activist groups and unions, their protests were initially largely spontaneous, no link to the partially political party or an ideological currents. Made it difficult for the regime to decapitate the movement by simply arresting few troublemakers, a situation that the security forces were completely unprepared for. The next cause of the Arab Spring was social media. The first mass protest in Egypt was announced on Facebook by an anonymous group of activists who in a few days managed to attract tens of thousands of people. The social media proven powerful mobilization tool that helped the activists to outwit the police. Next cause of the Arab Spring was a rallying call of the mosque. The mosque, the most iconic and best attended protest, took place on Friday when Muslim believers head to the mosque for a weekly sermons and prayers. Although the protest were not religiously inspired, the mosque became the perfect starting point for mass gathering. The authorities could cordon off the main square and target universities, but they could not close down all mosques. Next cause of the blended state response. The response of Arab dictator of the mass protest was predictably awful, going for dismissal to panic from police brutality to the piecemeal reform that came too little too late. Attempt to put down the protest through the useful force backfired spectacularly. In Libya and Syria, it led to civil war. Every funeral for the victim of state violence and deeply to the anger brought more people to the street. The next cause of the next and the last cause of the Arab Spring was contingent effect. Within a month of the downfall of the Tanzanian dictator in January 2011, the protests spread to the almost every Arab country as people copied the tracks of the revolt through with varying intensity and success. Broadcast live on Arab satellite channels, the resignation in February 2011 of Egypt Hosni Mubarak, one of the most powerful and Middle East leader, broke the wall of fear and changed the region forever. Next, we talk about the major events which was happening in Arab Spring. Tanzania was the birthplace of the Arab Spring, the immolation of Muhammad Bazozi, a local vendor, outward a local vendor outraged over the injustice suffered at the hand of local police, sparked countrywide protests in December 2010. The main target was the corruption and repressive policies of President Zain al Ibadin bin Ali, who was forced to flee the country on January 14, 2011, after the armed forces refused to crack down on the protests. Following Bin Ali downfall, Tanzania entered a protracted period of political transition. Parliamentary elections was held in October 11, was won by Islamists who entered in the coalition government with smaller secular parties. Next major event was Egypt. The Arab Spring in Tanzania, began in Tanzania, but the decisive moment that changed the region forever was downfall of Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, the West's key Arab ally, the power since 1980. Mass protests start on January 15, 2011, and Mubarak was forced to resign on Feb 11 after the military, similar to Tanzania, refused to intervene against the masses occupying the Central Tahrir Square in Cairo. But that was to be only the first chapter in the story of Egypt's revolution. A deep division emerged over the new political system. Islamists from the Freedom of Justice Party FJP won the parliamentary and presidential election in 2011 and 12, and their relation was secular party. Source protests for deeper political change continue. Meanwhile, the Egyptian military remain the single most powerful political player, as much of the old regime remain in place. The economy has been in free fall since the start of the unrest. Next was Libya. By the time of Egyptian leader resign, large party of the Middle East were already in turmoil. The protest against Colonel Muhammad Gaddafi regime in Libya started on Feb 15, 2011, escalating into the first civil war caused by the Arab Spring. In March 2011, NATO forces intervened against the Gaddafi army, helped the opposition rebel movement to capture most of the country. By August 2011, Gaddafi was killed on October 20, but the rebel attempt was short-lived. Various rebel militia effectively partitioned the country among them, leaving a weak central government that continued to struggle, exert its authority, and provide basic service of to citizen. Most of oil production has returned on stream, but political violence remain endemic, and the religious extremism has been on the rise. Next was the Yemen major event. Yemeni leader Ali Abdullah Saleh was the fourth victim of the Arab Spring, unbalanced of event in Tanzania. Anti-government protests of all government colors start pouring on the street in the mid January 2011. Hundreds of protests, hundreds of people died in clash as pro-government force organized rival rebel release, and the army began to disintegrate into two political camps. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda in Yemen began to seize territory in the south of the country. A political settlement facilitated by Saudi Arabia saved Yemen from an all-out civil war. President Saleh signed the transition deal on 23rd November 2011, agreeing to step aside from the transitional government led by the Vice President Abdul Rabb Mansour al-Hadi. However, little progress toward stable democratic order has been made since, with the regular Al-Qaeda attack, separatism in the south, tribal dispute, and collapsing economy stealing the transition. Next, Bahrain. Bahrain protest in the small Persian Gulf minority began on 15th Feb, just day after Mubarak resignation. Bahrain has a long history of tension between the ruling Sunni royal family and the majority of Shia population, demanding greater political and economic rights. The Arab Spring recognized the largely Shia protest movement, and tens of thousands took the street, defying live fire from the security forces. Bahraini royal family was saved by military intervention of neighboring countries led by Saudi Arabia, as Washington looked at other ways. Bahrain houses U.S. Fifth Fleet, but in the absence of the political solution, the crackdown failed to suppress the protest movement. Protests clashed with security forces and arrest the opposition activists continue. Next was Syria. Bin Ali and Mubarak was down, but everyone was looking at the breath of the Syrian. Syria. Bin Ali and Mubarak were down, but everyone was holding their breath for Syria, a multi-religious country allied to Iran, ruled by the responsive Republican regime, and the pivotal geopolitical position. First major protests began in March 2011 in political town, gradually spread all major urban area. The regime brutally provoked an armed response for the opposition, and the mid-2011 army defenders began organized in the Free Syrian Army. By the end of 2011, Syrian side into the irreducible civil war, with most of the Alevites religious minorities siding with President Bashar al-Assad, most of the Sunni majority supporting the rebels. Both camps have outside backers. Russia supports the regime while Saudi Arabia supports the rebels, with neither side able to break the deadlock. Next was Morocco. The Arab Spring hit Morocco on Feb 20, 2011, when thousands of protesters gathered in the capital Rabat, and gather Rabat and other cities demand in other cities demanding greater social justice and limits of the power of the King Muhammad VI. The king responded by offering constitutional amendment, giving up some of his power by calling a fresh parliamentary election that was less heavily controlled by the royal court than previous polls. This, together with fresh state funds to help low-income families, blended the appeal of the protest movement, with many Moroccans content and with the king's program to gradual reforms, release demanding a genuine constitutional monarchy continue, but have so far failed to mobilize the mass witness in Tanzania or Egypt. The next major event was Jordan of Arab Spring. Protests in Jordan gained momentum in late January 2011 as Islamist lefts group and youth activists protest against the living government, living conditions and corruption. Similarly to Morocco, most Jordanians wanted to reform rather than abolish the monarchy, giving the King Abdullah II the breathing space that his Republican counterpart in other Arab countries didn't have. As a result, the king managed to put the Arab Spring on hold by making cosmetic changes to the political system and reshuffling the government. Fear chaos similar to Syria did the rest. However, the economy of is doing poorly, and none of the key issue has been addressed. The protesters' demand could grow more radical over time. So after January 2011, after 2011, what happened after the Arab Spring? So in green color you can see in the map, Tanzania government was overthrown and there was a successful transition of democracy. Next, light green, Egypt government was overthrown and the new government is still developing. The government has been developed now. Now the blue color, Algeria, Morocco, Jordan, Kuwait and Oman. Government was not overthrown but changes were made. The light red color, Egypt, Libya, Yemen and Syria. Civil war has been started and these wars are still going. ISIS controlled Syria. Libya was divided into two parts, Tripoli and Benghazi. Tripoli government was UN elected government and Benghazi government was a rebel group supported by UAE, France and one and the other country, Yemen. Yemen is also fighting with Saudi Arabia and there is a civil war in Yemen also. Next, Saudi Arabia. Protest was stopped, no major changes were made. So this is all about the Arab Spring. Thank you very much.